Joyous early evening. Let's see if anybody shows up. The evidence I need to believe in your claim God. Very simple. Of Divine Dictionary. I have a dictionary. See if I can get that to show up on the screen. There, boom. I have a dictionary. I know that exists. When you show me the Divine Dictionary from your claim God, I'll believe your God exists. I'll put that here at the top. Bump it up. That's what I need. That's the evidence I need. That's what I need. Once I have that, I'll believe in your claim God. A Divine Dictionary. That's what I need. Why do I need a Divine Dictionary? Well, because I have evidence of a dictionary right here. This is evidence your claim God does not exist. What a Divine Dictionary would do would show that your claim God was divine. But here's the problem. It's a paradox. Because divine communication is definitionally perfect. I don't like that. Instantaneous, effortless, optimal, and omnipresent. I think everyone agrees with that. Premise 2, perfect, instantaneous, effortless, optimal, omnipresent communication requires 0 dictionaries. That's kind of obvious as well. Premises 3, human dictionaries exist solely because our communication, human communication, is I think I put it instead of ours, I'll put human. Take off the caps lock. Human communication is a highly entropic struggle requiring immense physical effort to organize, categorize, maintain, and map relentless semantic drift every now t equals 0 moment. Therefore, conclusion 1, therefore, any and all books requiring a dictionary are explicitly not divine communication. Conclusion 2, therefore, dictionaries hold every God claimer accountable for the words they use to claim their gods. Straightforward, simple. Actually, there's more of a conclusion I can put. I can put a conclusion 3 on there if I can find it. Where would I have that conclusion? I think it's here. I think it's here. Bum, 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 bum. Oops, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted either. We'll do that. We'll do that. We'll do that. We'll do that. We'll do this. We'll do this. We'll do this. Conclusion 3. The language and communication sandbox is human-made, filled with human symbols, words, and definitions. Conclusion 4. Allowing a fellow human being to claim a God without addressing this syllogism is self-respect bankruptcy. And Yahtzee, that'll fit when I remove that. But right now, we'll leave that. If anybody shows up, a divine dictionary is the evidence I need to believe in your claim God. Provide a divine dictionary, and I'll believe your claim God exists. The paradox, the catch-22. The pickle is that a divine dictionary cannot exist because premise is 1. A divine communication is definitionally perfect, instantaneous, without effort. This takes effort. Optimal. This is suboptimal. And I don't think, yep, I have it right here. This is suboptimal. And omnipresent. Premises 2. Perfect, instantaneous, effortless, optimal, omnipresent communication requires 0 dictionaries and 0 special books. See how that works? Premises 3. Human dictionaries exist solely because human communication is a high entropic struggle. They don't just create one dictionary. They create dictionaries every year. Every year, words drift. New words are added. Useless words are removed because they're not, not useless, but less used words are removed just because the size of the dictionary would be incredibly large. It takes immense effort, resources, paper, ink, machines to organize. This is organized alphabetically. Categorize. It's categorized. A, B, C, D, that's a category. Maintain it every year, putting out a new dictionary. This dictionary has a printing date in it, when it was printed. It shows what the words meant at that time. This is an older dictionary. Every year, new dictionaries. And there's a slight change showing the progression because words are descriptive. To map relentless semantic drift every now t equals 0 moment. Conclusion 1, therefore, any and all books requiring a dictionary. This book requires a dictionary to be understood. This is an English translation of manuscripts that have been agreed upon and was in consensus. This book is a consensus book, just like this book is a consensus book. These are both consensus books. Therefore, any and all books requiring a dictionary, this book here requires a dictionary, are explicitly not divine. Because premise is 1. Divine communication is definitionally perfect, instantaneous, effortless, optimal, and omnipresent. So a divine dictionary, it doesn't need to exist. Conclusion 2, therefore dictionaries hold every God claimer accountable for the words they use to claim their gods. Because conclusion 3, the language in the communication sandbox is human-made. Every single word in this book is human-made. Every single symbol is human-made. Every single definition is consensus. A dog is a dog because we decide. Look at Pup Pup down there. We decide what a dog is. We can change that instantaneously. I can call Pup Pup a cat. And if you and I agree that cats were formerly known as dogs, the communication doesn't suffer at all. It continues on smoothly. The language and communication sandbox is human-made, filled with human symbols. All these words that are now being highlighted, they're all human. Not one of them comes from a god. And words and definitions, they're all human-made in the human sandbox. Conclusion 4, allowing a fellow human being to claim a god without addressing the fact that they are using human words, that I know the definition of every single human word. Every single human word is defined right here. This dictionary exists. Your claimed gods do not exist. It's that simple. If this book requires a dictionary, this book, to be understood, if you read Exodus 20, verse 2, it says when a slave is purchased, when is temporal. A slave is defined by this book. Slave is chosen in consensus by a Hebrew dictionary. for whatever language, right? So the scholars that made this book have agreed upon in consensus that the word in English is slave, and slave is defined in this book by something that is owned by a fellow human being. Fellow human beings owning fellow human beings as property. That's what a slave is. The dictionary tells us the definition. You need this dictionary to understand this book. Divine dictionaries do not exist. The evidence I need to believe in your claim God is a divine dictionary. Right here, a divine dictionary. Every single one of those words, every single one of those letters are human created, are human defined, are human consensus agreements. A has a meaning because we define, we agree upon the meaning of A. This book defines what it is. Divine has a definition because of this book. Dictionary has a definition because of this book, because of these things here, human beings. That's why. So the God claimer is in a pickle. Every single word they use is defined by this thing that exists, that I have physical evidence of, that's staying firmly grounded on a table because of gravity, because of physics. The table exists. The floor exists. The structure of this house exists. The foundation is firmly set on bedrock of the earth that exists. It's turtles all the way down. So the evidence I need to believe in your claim God is simple: a divine dictionary. But that leaves you in a pickle because divine dictionaries are impossible. Because of these premises. I wonder if I bump this down to 175. No, they don't have 175. It's 150. Now it's harder to read. So we'll just bump it up back up to 200. The bottom conclusion doesn't matter. So that's what I need. But nobody's going to show up because YouTube's not going to push this out. So while we're waiting for somebody to show up, we'll go to this: guaranteed world peace. I can guarantee world peace happens because self-respect is the foundation of that world peace. World peace being defined as an ideal state of harmony and not violence among all nations and people. Peoples? Should we get spicy and put peoples? Self-respect is the competence of being oneself from the source, practice, and application of awareness, appreciation, accountability, and healthy curiosity. I'll define all those words later. Here are the steps to guaranteed world peace. Step 1, existence logic. Logic's ontology. Through Minkowski coordinates in every single word, I prove that logic has ontology. Existence and logic are one and the same thing. Thus, the combined word of existence logic. And that is proven through Minkowski coordinates. Step 2, verify A theory, thus falsifying B theory with delta E equals delta MC squared. It's called a verification because it's a proof. It's mathematic. Step 3, since A theory is verified with delta E equals MC squared, step 3 is reality of memories are the reality of memories being now T equals 0 moment experiences. Telling stories is not an experience. So step 1, logic's ontology, existence logic. To exist is a now T equals 0 moment, entropically gated thermodynamic binding energy event, an active dynamic work function, a verb. At exactly one Minkowski coordinate of t sub 0, x sub 0, y sub 0, z sub 0, nothing can exist. An isolated coordinate possesses no space-time interval. Because there is no second reference frame, and multi-coordinate displacement cannot be initialized, rendering the interval mathematically undefined, a true null set. ds squared equals null set. The ds squared will come into importance later. Because there's no second reference frame, the relational delta equals 0, is absolute 0. With zero relational delta, delta equaling 0, there is no possibility for comparison. Existence logic gates. A cannot equal A. A cannot equal A or not A. Exclude the middle, contradiction, and identity. A equal A. A is equal to A or not A. And A has to be A or not A. No possibility for change. There's only one coordinate. You can't change. You can't change because there's no other coordinates. And no possibility for differential. Therefore, there is zero kinetic or binding energy or work function. Conclusion. One isolated Minkowski coordinate possesses a surface area of absolute 0. Zero surface area, zero information. It has zero physical capacity to store quantum states, information, or mass. It is the absolute physical definition of not existence. No distance, no duration, no binding energy work function, event, no sample rating, no now moment, no time, equaling no thing. Minkowski coordinates. Minkowski's convenience versus accuracy. The coordinate convenience to your hand form. The standard textbook presentation of the Minkowski metric defines the intervals s relative to an implied origin. So s squared equals negative c squared, speed of light squared, times time squared plus x squared plus y squared plus z squared. Notice, that's only 1 point. 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 Notice, it doesn't matter because these are all 1 point. There's no differential. There's no differentiation. There's no understanding. There's no existence. In this format, the variables t, x, y, z are treated notationally as independent single-point coordinates. However, to perform the squaring operation of x squared, the mathematics requires these values to represent magnitudes, lengths, and durations. This notation permits a conceptual slip. It allows the observer to treat an isolated point as if it inherently possesses the physical properties of a spatial extension. This is a lie. That is a lie. So let's talk about the accurate relational form, the accurate equation. To maintain strict logical and dimensional accountability, the metric must be written to expose its mandatory multi-coordinate framework, either via macro displacement delta or strict differential forms d. D squared is equal to c squared times the square of t sub 1 minus t sub 0 minus the square of x sub 1 minus x sub 0 minus the square of y sub 1 minus y sub 0 minus the square of z sub 1 minus z sub 1. That is the accurate formula. Notice now there's 2 points. Now there's differentiation. Now there's existence, T1 and T0. Now you can compare. Now there's understanding. Now there's information. Now there's surface area. X1 and x sub 1 and x sub 0. Now there's 2 coordinates. Y sub 1, y sub 0. Now there's 2 coordinates. Z sub 1, z sub 0. Now there's 2 coordinates. This formulation demonstrates that the interval, you need 2 points for interval. The interval, ds, cannot be calculated using a single isolated coordinate set. The shared interval witness. Every valid iteration of the metric requires a displacement or differential on both sides of the equation. That's why it's d squared, and that's why all these are squared. An interval, s squared or ds squared, is by definition a measurement between boundaries. A squared, or a and not a. Now you have existence. Now you have logic. Now you have existence logic. Logic and existence are one and the same thing. This is the symmetric requirement. The equation balances because the relational interval on the left side is paid for by the explicit spatial and temporal differences dt, comma dx, comma dy, comma dz, or deltas, delta t, comma delta x, comma delta y, comma delta z on the right. This equation balances out. This is accurate. On the right, if the relational deltas are reduced to zero, attempting to evaluate the metric at a single isolated coordinate point without reference to a second coordinate or an origin frame, the space-time interval drops to a null set. ds squared equals 0. So the ontological status ledger. Level 1, the isolated coordinate, the null set, mathematical state. A single coordinate point, t sub 0, x sub 0, y sub 0, z sub 0, evaluated in isolation. Structural result, delta t equals 0, delta x equals 0, delta y equals 0, delta z equals 0. Therefore, the differential between these, s squared, is equal to 0. It's a null set. Physical reality, an isolated coordinate point possesses a surface area of absolute 0. It lacks a dimensional capacity to store a quantum state, anchor a mass energy vector, or initialize a clock. It represents a state of not existence. It doesn't exist. Level 2, two-coordinate system, the minimum ledger unit. Mathematical state, a minimum framework of two distinct coordinate points, t sub 0, x sub 0, y sub 0, z sub 0, and t sub 1, x sub 1, y sub 1, z sub 1. Structural result, ds squared, delta s equals not 0. 0 and not 0. 2 points. Differentiation, understanding, surface area, information. Physical reality, existence initializes when a relational gap is established between two frames. This gap is mapped by a photon, by the photon. I don't like this part. I'm going to change it. But a mass-bearing reference frame, primary measuring tool. The distance a photon travels between t sub 0 and t sub 1 constitutes the minimum ledger unit of physical reality. I don't like that part. I got to change it. Words have meanings. Here's the experiment. Anchor, noun, decoherence. Mechanism. Replace a primary subject noun, for example, cat, in a logical sentence with a coin flip alternative that violates physical reality. For example, refrigerator. The metric. Measure the coherence fall-off of the observer's ability to synchronize consciousness equaling 2a sub ELG squared with the signal. The biometric receipt. The N400 ERP. A successful falsification audit should observe the N400 event-related potential, ERP. This is a negative going deflection in the brain's electrical activity that peaks at approximately 400 milliseconds. After semantic violation, replacing cat in the sentence with refrigerator. I should put that sentence at the beginning. I'll do that now. The logic. If the N400 spike occurs, it is biometric proof that the brain has detected a mismatch between a consensus label word and the existence logic identity gate substrate A is equal to A. Let me put that. Oh, I don't have that sentence? Where's my sentence? It's in here somewhere. Bum, bum, bum. Right there. Control C. Words have meaning. And I should put, they don't need to be there anymore. Nobody's here, so we'll do this. Control V. The cat climbed the tree. Actually, I should probably keep that the same. So we're going to bump this down to 31. Bump this down to 31. And we'll put in versus. I think that's lowercase. We'll do this. 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 We'll do that. We'll do this. That should be centered. And it's not. Why won't it let me do that? I do this. And I put word. And I bump it up to 19. And I delete this. It's not letting me do what I want to do because I'm horrible with technology. Words have meanings. The cat climbed the tree versus the refrigerator climbed the tree. The experiment, anchor noun decoherence mechanism, replace a primary subject noun like the cat in a logical sentence with a coin flip alternative that violates physical reality. For example, the refrigerator. The metric, measure the coherence fall off, and the observer's ability to synchronize consciousness, because consciousness is the ability for two people to communicate. That's what consciousness is. To A sub E ELG squared with a signal. The biometric receipt, the N400 ERP, event-related potential. A successful falsification audit should observe the N400 event-related potential. This is a negative going deflection in the brain's electrical activity that peaks at approximately 400 milliseconds after semantic violation. The cat climbed the tree, no violation. The refrigerator climbed the tree, violation. It's measurable. The logic, if the N400 spike occurs, it is biometric proof that the brain has detected a mismatch between the consensus label words and the existence logic identity gate substrate A equals A. The result, validated. If the coherence plummets and the N400 spike is recorded, the logic gate, the existence logic gate, is notarized as grounded in the T equals 0 substrate. Falsified. If the coherence of the language does not plummet and the no N400 signal is triggered when the existence logic identity gate A equals A is replaced by coin flip A not equaling A, the existence logic tree is false. And there's my, there was actually a mistake there. I got to figure out what that is. Step 2, verifying A theory and thus falsifying B theory. Proton-proton chain reaction. Chain reactions. The three main steps. The sequence transforms hydrogen, the sequence, the or this. We'll leave the. The sequence transforms hydrogen into helium through a series of distinct thermonuclear steps in the center of a star. Deuterium production. The weak nuclear force allows a single quark, through beta decay, beta plus decay. I think I have that somewhere else. A single quark and a single proton to undergo beta plus. That's right, right there. Beta plus decay. Beta plus to undergo a change in flavor. And one quark changes from an up quark to a down quark, creating a neutron that instantaneously forms a stable bond with a proton with the other proton with a proton, creating a deuterium, 2H. That stable bond is stronger now, fills less space, and is heavier than two single protons. Due to delta E equals delta MC squared, a positron, E plus, and an electron neutrino, V sub E, are emitted, releasing 1.442 mega electron volts of energy. The emitted positron immediately annihilates with a nearby electron, generating 2 gamma ray photons and a single neutrino, V sub E. The neutrino, V sub E, having no charge, instantaneously, at nearly the speed of light, because there is mass, at nearly the speed of light, leaves the local microenvironment of the star into the macro environment of the universe forever. Never to be in that location again. Falsifies B theory of time right there. But it's worse. Helium-3 production. The deuterium nucleus collides with another proton to form an isotope of helium called helium-3, 3EHE. This step releases a gamma ray photon and produces an additional 5.49 mega electron volts of energy released. Helium-4 production. 2 helium-3 nuclei formed by the 2 separate iterations of the first step of proton-proton chain reactions fuse together to create a single helium-4 nucleus, 4He. This final step releases 2 excess protons and 12.86 mega electron volts of energy. Each step, new things are created that were not there in the past, that were not there before, releasing energy, because delta E is equal to delta MC squared. That's what that means. I don't know why scientists have gotten it wrong for so long. I don't know why B theory has existed for so long, because it's nonsense. It's theology now. It's dogma. There's no math behind it. Step 3, the material mechanism of language and memory. Words and the N400 ERP biometric anchor. Words are consensus representations of things that exist. Like this dictionary. It exists. Designed to facilitate sentience, computational power. A sub ELG, existence logic, squared. And consciousness, 2 sentiences interacting to get closer to reality. 2A sub ELG, existence logic gates, squared. And differential understanding. You can only compare things to understand. You need to compare things to understand things. Without comparison, there is no understanding. Without comparison, there is no surface area. Without comparison, without 2 Minkowski coordinates, there is no surface area. There is no understanding. There is no existence. True understanding is a direct comparison of these representations, words, human words, defined in this book by consensus, against the unyielding gates of existence logic. A is equal to A. A has to be A or not A. And A cannot be A and not A at the same time. 2 coordinates. Here's the N400 again. The architectural proof. Hearing the phrase, the refrigerator climbed the tree, triggers an immediate N400 voltage spike because a refrigerator cannot occupy a climbing coordinate within the structural mechanics of the field. This proves that language is not an arbitrary cultural game. It is a metabolic tool that must align with the physical T equals 0 substrate to achieve laminar flow. Memory is calibration tools. Memories are not static. Memories are changing. Memories are do I have it? Yes, memories are not static. Historic film strips stored on a hard drive. They are now T equals 0 moment entropically gated thermodynamic metabolic ionic work function events, determined entirely by the immediate chemical composition, chemical signature, and organ structures of the active ecosystem. This ecosystem right here. And I'm going to add chemical signature. And organ structure, this brain structure. If I have a brain aneurysm, the structure of the brain changes. That means the memories change of an active ecosystem. The core function, memory, is a real-time calibration tool used to weigh the now information pattern recognition assessment, the NIPRA. Now information, the information I have right now, that is, I have access to right now, the patterns I recognize in that information and assessing them. The now information pattern recognition assessment. When a survival relevant pattern repeats, this is always a book. That's why I call it a book. It's a book now. It's a book now. It's a book now. It was a book then because I see it now. I compared the patterns, so I recognize this as a book. The words on the pages, they don't change. We're not in Harry Potter territory, all right? The words don't change magically. Survival relevant patterns repeat at T equals 0 now. The calibrated neural pathway fires with low metabolic impedance. It takes less energy. As soon as this book changes, right, that's going to require more metabolic resources, increasing systemic reaction time and safety margins. The ledger rule, memory is a safety setting, nothing more. Not a history book. It is never, ever, 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 ever an exact representation of events that have happened. I don't like that word. Past events that have happened. It is a live experience executing via your immediate now T equals 0 moment sodium levels, potassium levels, and ATP. So like I said, YouTube wasn't going to send this out because of the title. So not one viewer. But it is what it is. C'est la vie. My point's made. Reach out. Add a comment. Enjoy the evening. Bye. Show me I'm wrong. Bye.